Sai Ram, dear listeners, and welcome to this special episode of Tryst with Divinity, our series of conversations with people who have been touched by the love of Bhagwan. And today, in the studios, we have the chairman of the Prashanti Council, the body which oversees the activities of the International Sai Organization, Dr. Narendranath Reddy. He is of course no stranger to anyone in the Sai fraternity, having come to the lotus feet when he was just 5 years old in 1950. 4 generations of Dr. Reddy's family are devotees of Bhagwan, and for more than 25 years, Dr. Reddy and his family have had a Sai Baba center in their home. And apart from being the chairman of the Prashanti Council, he is also the chairman of the International Medical Committee of the Sri Satya Sai organizations, as well as the director of the Sri Satya Sai World Foundation. The Sri Satya Sai World Foundation is the governing body which looks into the financial and legal aspects of the International Sai organization. Professionally, Dr. Reddy graduated in medicine with distinction from SV Medical College in Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh, and then moved on to the US, where he specialized in internal medicine at the New Jersey College of Medicine and Dentistry. Later, he did his sub-specialization in endocrinology and metabolism at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, Newark. He has been a consultant and a practicing internist endocrinologist in South California for over 30 years. A fellow of the American College of Physicians and the American College of Endocrinologists, he is also on the teaching faculty at the Keck School of Medicine, University of Southern California. His professional accomplishments aside, whoever has met him cannot be untouched by his absolute commitment to Bhagwan's mission, and Baba in his divine design has blessed him with so many opportunities and has made him an integral part of his mammoth mission of love. We are really indeed happy to have him here with us today in the studios of Radio Sai in Prashanti Nilayam. Welcome, sir, to this program, Tryst with Divinity.
With love and gratitude, I offer myself at the divine lotus feet of our omnipresent, omniscient and loving Lord Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Dear listeners, greetings of loving Sai Ram to all of you from Prashanti Nilayam. Dear Vishu, thank you for this kind but lengthy introduction.
I should thank you, sir, because the time is actually 10 o'clock now in the night and you're leaving tomorrow. Dear listeners, today is November 26th. The 87th birthday celebrations concluded a couple of days ago, and sir was so busy after the birthday celebrations we could never get time, and he's leaving tomorrow. Today is the only night we have, and I requested him and he is so graciously consented to come to the studio. So my really heartfelt gratitude to Swami that he enabled you to come and to take some time out to speak to us tonight, sir.
Yes, thank you. So I thank Swami and the Radio Sai for giving the opportunity, because in this connection I want to share something with you. Once this happened many years ago, people used to invite me for giving talks all over. Then at one time I felt, who am I to give talks? Because I felt it is blind leading the blind. I'm not a realized soul. How can I give talks? So I told Swami, people are asking me to share and I want to stop now and just can't lead a contemplative life. Swami says that is bad. Swami says you are selfish. I have given you love. It is your obligation and duty to share my love with others. Swami used the Telugu word, premanu panchuko penchuko. That means share the love I have given to you, and share with others, and then it will multiply. So that is a message. So this is the opportunity for me to share Swami's love and message with the listeners, and it is the commandment of Swami, and thanks for the opportunity.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you very much for sharing that. I remember the talk you gave. Really, Bhagwan was speaking through you, because it was just a couple of weeks after Bhagwan had left his mortal coil. I mean, the world had collapsed for many of us, and there were people outside, especially of the Sai fraternity and maybe some in the Sai organization, who were questioning what would happen to the organization. There were some people who were asking if the programs in Prashanti Nilayam would go on the way it has been going on for all these years. Will the activities of the organization continue like before? And that day in your talk, I remember the date, it was on May 4th, 2011, and you responded to them saying, yes, they will continue, but with a difference. And then you went on to say, now they will happen with greater intensity, with more enthusiasm, and with much more love. And the audience burst out in applause. But today, when I had a chance to look at the copy of the annual report of the International Sai Organization, which someone very kindly passed it on to me, I was just reminded of what you had said then. Because I just thought this is what you had said, and today you see activities 1 year down the line in all parts of the world and in countries, some of which you haven't even heard. Things are happening in Kazakhstan, things are happening in Uzbekistan and countries like that. So I just thought I should invite you to the studio because you must share with us these beautiful scenes of love, of service that you have witnessed in these 2 years.
Actually, it is really horrifying and exciting to see the glory and mission of Sai all over the world, because now we have in 115 countries where they have more than 2,000 such Sai centers involved in various types of devotional community service activities, which is spreading the Swami's message and love all over the world. And it is really true, it is really Bhagavan's grace that it is happening with much more enthusiasm and commitment among people, and the only source and inspiration is Bhagavan. So it is really wonderful to see that materializing and happening, because Swami says my work will go on, and then he is blessing all over, and people are experiencing his omnipresence and his love much more than ever. Before, Swami was for us like Parthivasa, he was the indweller of Parthi. Now he is the Hridayavasa, he is indweller of not only our hearts but omnipresent. Everywhere we can feel his presence and love, and that is the experience of not only me but the experience of devotees all over the world.
You have traveled a lot in the last 2-3 years. So maybe you can share with us some of the things that really touched you in your travels, be it in the education movement or be it in Medicare. Because I read there are things happening in Fiji, in Mauritius, in Guatemala, in Thailand. So maybe you can tell us, I know we don't have the time to cover everything, the annual report is so huge, but maybe you can share with us a few things which really gladdened your heart.
Actually, this is surprising even for myself and even some of the leaders in the organization, both India and overseas, how Swami's mission and glory has been around. I was talking to some senior trustees and they also looked at the annual report. They were amazed to see that in countries like Afghanistan and China, and then in some parts of Russia and Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan and Croatia, Bosnia, and all these countries, some of you not have heard, how Swami's message has spread and Swami's love is inspiring people. People were amazed to hear that. Actually, in that regard, I can tell during my most recent travel was about a month ago. In October 26th to 28th, there was a big conference of education in human values in San Luis Potosi in Mexico. This was in the University Auditorium, San Luis Potosi University Auditorium. The theme of the conference was education in human values, and there were 1,200 educators who have attended this, mostly teachers and professors. And I was told there were only 200 Sai devotees, and 1,000 of the other educators never even heard of Swami before. And they warned me beforehand, because there is the law of the government, you can't talk about God, you can't talk about Swami, but you can talk about the message. So really, I'm so much always passionate about Swami, and always I had to restrain myself, break myself to only focus on Swami's message, not on his leelas or his love. So it was, but it's amazing. This conference was very unique in that this was started with the military band arranged by the government, followed by the Mexican national anthem, and the government official deputy Secretary of Education, Mr. Ramos, attended the conference, gave the inaugural address, followed by my talk. And then senior education is like Dr. Otang Jimsai and Rani Marans, Dr. Paul Dal. They also address the gathering. And at the end of the thing, so many people were touched. They want to know who Sai Baba is, what Sai movement is. And there were so many people freely saying Sai Baba's movement, Sai Baba's human values. Within 3 days, so many people were touched. And also I mentioned how 1,000 people were not first said devotees, but then I was careful to say they didn't hear of Swami, because I can tell a nice anecdote which happened about 15 years ago. We have Sathya Sai Baba Book Center in Tustin, California. Most of you might have heard. It was started by Mrs. Elsie Cowan, ardent devotee who served Swami for many, many years. Swami was very fond of her.
Swami resurrected Walter Cowan.
Yes, Walter Cowan, yes. And then we were doing some remodeling for the book center, and we had to put a new air conditioning unit. When they put the new air conditioning unit, the workers were hired from outside. They were working. And that time, our office manager, who was Sai devotee managing, she was out of town. Then when she came back, these workers were telling, we finished the work, but your boss was overseeing the work. Says, she was wondering, who is the boss? Then they showed the photograph, big photograph of Swami, and showed Swami, pointed at Swami's photograph and said he was coming and inspecting us, making sure everything is going
good. Oh my God.
Yeah. Then she was amazed, and she was wondering and telling other trustees, Swami didn't give the volunteers, Sai devotees vision, but she gave to these workers who were doing the work. Then a few months after that, I happened to come to Prashanti, and I was going with Swami in the car with his blessings. And then I mentioned this particular incident, and I told Swami, you gave the vision to the non-devotees, but you didn't give it to the devotees. Swami just cut me short. He said, how do you know who is a devotee and not a devotee? That made me learn a lesson. We are nobody to judge who is a devotee or a non-devotee. Only God knows who is a devotee or a non-devotee. From that time onwards, I was very careful to say who is a devotee or non-devotee. I will say they never heard of Swami, but devotee or not, only the Lord knows.
They have not yet heard about Swami, that's all.
Yes, that's all. They may be practicing Swami's teachings better than some so-called devotees.
You mentioned that there is something happening in China.
Yes, that is another amazing thing. So I was also there in China in April, and they showed me around. There also, organized religion is not allowed, but they practice a Satsai education in human values. So they took me to this university in Ganzhou. So the Satsai devotees, they are doing a lot of good work there. They took me to this South China Normal University in Ganzhou. And there they were teaching the Satsai education, human values. And there were some professors and teachers who attended that event. And I happened to address them and some other educators. I was amazed and impressed at how much enthusiasm they were receiving those teachings of Swami in education, human values, and they have been doing it for a few years. And they showed in their PowerPoint presentation how much benefit this practicing of the human values has shown in the schools where this particular one is adopted. They showed it helped the children how they behave better at home, respecting their parents and behaving better. And then also better at the school in their academic performance, they have improved, and they're also their relations with the peers and the teachers was improved, and also in their community, they're more service oriented. So all the aspects they were telling that these human values were helpful, but they were more like scientific study. They were telling the love helped so much, truth helped so much. I said they're all one, but I was happy to hear. But then I was feeling they may not recognize the existence of God or whatever it is. They're practicing Swami's values. That is what Swami says. God is love, love is God. They're recognizing love as the important principle. Then I was telling our Sai devotees, yes, they may not say that they believe in God, but they're really practicing the God's message. That is more important. And also when I travel from Guangzhou to Hong Kong, I was traveling to see the devotees in Hong Kong. There is another school. It is not a Satsai school, it is a regular school, but adapted the human values of Satsai, human values. They have big billboards, both in Chinese language and English. Help our heart never, love all, serve all, those kind of values. And I went there, and then children were amazing. They were doing silent sitting, practicing the human values in Chinese language. They were singing the bhajans and dancing with that. It was so inspiring, and to see that I was very much touched when I saw that. So it is happening all over, like whether it is in Mexico, whether it is in China. And also I want to relate another thing. Kazakhstan, it happened recently at the invitation of the First Lady of Kazakhstan. So our Satsai organization arranged a conference of education, human values, where 250 teachers attended, and it was such a success. Subsequently, letter was written by the First Lady, how many people were touched, and she said, you should try to come more often and do many more conferences. He says it is transformed them overnight. Some of the teachers expressed that.
First Lady of Kazakhstan
has written, and actually next time I can show the printed I had. It is written just few weeks ago, so I received that letter. So it is nice to see how Swami in his own way is touching in China, Kazakhstan, Mexico, all over the world.
In fact, in the annual report I read, you were talking about Mexico. Institute of Satsai Education in Mexico has been awarded a human values faculty position by the prestigious Monterrey Institute of Technology and Higher Education.
Yes, that is amazing. We
are penetrating into the regular institutions.
Yes, and even I can talk about Indonesia, which is mainly a Muslim country. Our Satsai organization has adopted a school where, without mentioning Swami's name, they introduced the human values. I went to the school, I visited, and this particular school where they adopted this Satsai Education Human Values program, it is rated as one of the 10 best schools in Jakarta in providing character education. So that is why it's how Swami is impacting in these remote corners of the world, which are some of them you would never even imagine that these countries will have Swami's presence.
And there are, of course, the regular schools in Zambia. The Miracle School is going on. And I also read how the Satyasai School in Toronto is ranked as the top school.
Top school, yes.
Top school out of 2,700 schools in the Ontario province. Fantastic. At least once a month, one of the Thailand television stations visits the schools regularly to interview the faculty and students. This was also mentioned in the report, and I was so happy that the media is also recognizing the value of propagating these values. And on one side you have officials in the government recognizing how it is really benefiting the country, benefiting the society, and they are coming forward. And then you have the media also now taking notice of this, because it is so important that these things have to spread. And it's really...
But when you mentioned this Thailand, I want to really mention about Dr. Otlong Jimsai. It's commendable, the work he is doing. It is not few teachers, thousands of teachers are being trained in his institute, and so many people are exposed to the Satsai education, human values. His one-pointed commitment to the spreading Satsai education, human values is really amazing and really praiseworthy. It is wonderful work he is doing.
I think a lot of teachers of this Institute of Satyasai Education get trained there. There are 28 institutes of Satyasai Education.
Yes. And he was the pioneer in the field and has trained lots of people. Actually, he came to even the Mexico San Luis Potosi conferences. He gave such a beautiful talk, and I was really touched how his one-pointed attention and one-pointed love for this mission.
This is on the education front. The other thing that really struck me as I was reading the annual report was the work done with respect to disaster relief.
Yes.
Because I saw some pictures, especially in Thailand, people who were devastated because of this flooding, and when they were being given these gifts and essential items, the look on their face was, it was a very, very moving picture.
Yes.
And I don't know if you have visited Thailand.
Yes, I have seen many disaster relief work is going on. I can relate to a couple of them where personally I was involved, like Haiti is the one. Fortunately at that time we had a personal guidance from Swami. In Haiti, there is a major earthquake was there in January of 2010, and it is wonderful to see by Swami's grace. Ours is one of the first NGOs to go and attend the relief work. But more than that, so there are so many NGOs which have come into the picture and served in the area, but a lot of them disappeared after 6 months. Ours is probably one of the only, or maybe the only NGO which is present even till today. We are providing, even today I got a message they wanted some money to be transferred from the foundation. So where we continue to daily provide the meals for the needy, we provide water, we provide the support for the orphanage, we provide the school supplies for the needy children. Still that happens. When I visited this soon after the earthquake for the assessment of the relief efforts and the needs, so we were providing even medical camps there. So I went to an orphanage. Those children, they didn't have much, but they were so happy. They were singing songs in that Haitian language. And then I asked them, did they have ice cream? They never had ice cream in years. So I told them to get ice cream.
Very nice.
Get ice cream. It took them almost 1 hour. They had to go travel all the way. So it shows that once I gave them the ice cream, I wish I could share those photographs. My God, they were like in bliss or ecstasy. Those little kids joying. They were kissing my hand. They were jumping all over. So really, it was such a simple act, but how much they were touched. How Swami is this relief.
How much need is there?
Yes. And also we provided some homes also for the needy people who lost. And how Swami saves people all over through the volunteers. One lady was sharing an interesting thing. That time there was a major earthquake, thousands of people died. This lady, one of the Sai devotees, was under the rubble. Nobody could even hear her. And she knows the Swami's Ashtottara Shatanama. Some of them memorized this 108 names. And she was saying, Asahaya, Sahaya, Namaha, the one helper of the helpless. And meanwhile, she said the rubble was a little bit separated. There was a light she could see, and she put out her hand, and then somebody saw that, some movement there, came and pulled her out. So she was sharing how Swami hears that. That is one of the things about the Haiti disaster. And then last year you might have heard there we had the big Japanese tsunami earthquake in March. And that time also our Japanese Satsai organization sprang into action right away and provide the lots of relief efforts by providing
tons of material.
Tons of food and clothing and all the material. But interesting, one episode which touched me was, so these people are giving food, shelter. When they approached one woman, then they offered some help, but she refused. I said, I don't need any help.
She refused help.
She refused. She didn't want anything. But she says, is there anything we can do? She said, only thing is, she says, I lost my mother in this disaster. At least I want to see her body, dead body, just that gives me peace of mind. Can you do that? They said, how can thousands of people die? They are washed in the ocean. But what all we can do, ma'am, we'll give you this picture of our teacher, a God for us. And they gave us Sai Baba's picture and said, we will pray for you and you also pray. So and then she prayed, and lo and behold, within 24 hours, her mother's body was washed onto the shore, and she was so delighted, and she right away called these people, oh, he is God, he is God, he is really God. So that is how Swami has touched people. So it is not only giving the relief, but how then she becomes a devotee of Swami. So this is how those are the really mind-boggling things about how Swami touched. Another instance, just suddenly I remember about Russia also. I went to Russia in 2010 for a pre-world conference as per the blessings of Swami. And then when we went, my God, this Russian Swami, that is why they love Russian devotees. They have so much pure love for Swami, simple people. Some of them traveled to attend the conference, 5 days in train, and they came. And one of the officers was sharing how they went to this particular town called Samarkand. It is in Uzbekistan. So it is the second largest city in Uzbekistan. They were doing some work. And then they wanted to know who is doing. They had the picture of Swami in their hand. Then one elderly woman, more than 80 years old, she saw the picture of Swami and she started crying. They said, what happened? They thought there's something wrong. Oh no, this is God, this is God. She went on saying she never heard of Swami.
Spontaneously.
She never saw Swami, never heard about Swami. See how that direct experience Swami gives to people, that is mind-boggling. That is astounding and mind-boggling about these things, how Swami gives experience.
You go out and do some work, and Swami actually is telling you how he's been doing
Yes.
his work much before
Right.
you can even think of.
I think that's the greatest miracle. Some of these remote corners, we think we are spreading a message, but he has his own way, touching people's heart. That is what I realize.
In fact, I also saw in the annual report really very lovely pictures of Sai youth in Trinidad. They are constructing these prefabricated houses
Yes.
for the poor, and so beautifully they have planned it well. The entire construction is done at another place, and then they dismantle it, and then they arrange it here in the site of the poor, and it is conforms to all the regulations in terms of safety and in terms of its robustness, and it's such a beautiful house.
That is wonderful. Actually, they helped even during the Haiti disaster relief. These people from there, they brought prefabricated homes to Haiti, Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and we provided to some of the needy people the homes there. They were helpful in the relief efforts, the people from West Indies. They are doing a wonderful job.
Talking about disaster, recently we heard so many news, all of them very distressing, about Sandy, hurricane in US. And I was just hoping, there is so much need here, if Sai Organization could go out and do something.
Yes, you are right. This is very sad. After many decades, I think this is the major disaster happened on 29th October 2012. This Hurricane Sandy, one of the largest Atlantic hurricane on record, landed on the east coast of the USA. Within 24 hours, thousands of homes were damaged, and death toll was from the storm reached to over 200. Families New Jersey, New York, and Long Island were among the hardest hit, and there was power shortages. People did not have power for so long, and fuel shortage. But by Swami's blessings and grace, the USA Sathya Sai Organization immediately, not even with the delay of days, sprang into action. They provided food, they provided clothing and transportation to these victims of the natural disaster. Now they are providing hot meals, at least 600 hot meals a day to the needy people, and going and visiting them at the shelter. So immediately they are providing the food, and then shelter and transportation, and also providing, because it was cold, they are providing blankets and clothing. But they're also already started planning for the intermediate and long-term needs of these people. Like, for example, some of the schools, children, they are providing the school supplies, and some of them rehabilitation, and some psychological counseling because they're distraught. One interesting Swami's miracle, there was one lady, she lost her home and she lost the family, but volunteers could not communicate because she was talking in Persian language. These people didn't understand. They were praying, Swami, how can we help? Because they don't know what she's asking. Then one of these Sai devotees then meanwhile walks in. He's from Afghanistan. He knows the Persian language. Then he could communicate, and then he knew the problem, and he could get her in contact with her family. And she was almost blissed out. So it shows how Swami, when sincerely you want to help, how he makes the things happen. But our Sai organization is doing a lot of activity. We even started a separate relief fund a few weeks ago for just the Hurricane Sandy. But we are not appealing for outside USA, because fortunately we have enough resources within the country. Our organization, our volunteers are able to support. But our Sai organization we're taking very active part in the relief effort as a nationwide. In addition to providing monetary supplies, all the regions in USA, they even recently had a teleconference how they can identify the needs of the people in that region and buy them on a wholesale scale various supplies and shipping to the needy areas.
Fantastic. That's really very heartening to know. And I also saw in the report how the youth in Indonesia reached out to people during that fire emergency which happened in 2011, September 2011. That was another which really moved me when I saw those pictures there.
I think really it is wonderful to see the youth movement. Not only they are having the conferences, leadership meetings and all that, but they're really taking lots of interest and taking active part in service activities. As recently as few weeks ago, the youth from Singapore all the way, they went to Sri Lanka and they did the village improvement program. Just a few weeks ago in the war-stricken area of Jaffna area where after the war so many people were displaced and lost. So they went, made it all the way from Singapore. The youth took the initiative to go and help. This is happening all over the world. So really it is good to see the youth when instead of being just worrying about their interest of their own career and family, they go all the way to help the needy. This is the inspiration from Swami. That is really heartwarming to see that this is Swami's grace.
The other interesting thing that I noted was, as you were talking about youth, the youth in Malaysia, they have formed something called Shakti.
Yes.
And they have named it very well. It is strengthening heart, attitude, knowledge, talent and image. And they have gone to technical colleges and there are 200 students who in these technical colleges, they found this transformation in their character. And what they have noticed is the discipline problem in one of these institutes where this program has been organized, a Shakti program, has reduced to zero. It is really such a fantastic thing.
No,
the movement called Shakti.
In Malaysia, I was joking. I was there a few months ago. I was there when I was traveling after Shivaratri this year. I went to Singapore and then after that I went to Indonesia and then went to Malaysia. I was joking with them. They all come with these acronyms and then they have this HOPE, which is nice. HOPE is honoring parents every day. So actually they had a Malaysian group enacted the drama on this November 24th in Sai Kulwant Hall after the Japanese drama, Japanese dance and music program. And there the theme is honoring the parents and the value system. So the youth are really, that is done mainly by the youth. So the really youth are doing that and this using these acronyms instead of for anything else for the good cause. And actually they came up with another thing, I was joking with that one youth leader there and came with CAT. I said, what is CAT? That is clarity, accountability and transparency. So there's like they're coming using it for good things. So that is good. The youth are very, very delighted.
As they're taking the message to the wider community out there, they're having this innovative ways of taking Bhagwan's message and it is having the impact. And that is really very, very
and also they take
positive.
Very active part in arranging their own conferences like the regional level and the national level conference and the zonal level conference and then international level. Actually, last Guru Purnima, the July of this year, the youth from the Far East countries, they had a conference in Prashanti Nilayam where few hundred youth came and a lot of people who have addressed. And they are doing this. Actually, I was there in Sri Lanka in this July, just after the Guru Purnima I went to, and they had a national youth conference in Jaffna in Sri Lanka. And so people were talking about Swami's message and how they could take more active part in the service activities, and they're doing a lot of wonderful service activities. It is wonderful to see the youth doing that. I'm very, very happy. Swami said they are really practicing start early, drive slowly, and reach safely. Started early.
Sairam, you were listening to the first part of a conversation with Dr. Narendranath Reddy from California, USA. A distinguished internist endocrinologist, Dr. Reddy's association with Bhagwan spans over 5 decades. He is currently the chairman of Prashanti Council, which oversees the activities of the International Sai Organization. He is also a director of Sri Satya Sai World Foundation, which looks into the legal and financial matters of Worldwide Sai Organization. In this first part of the conversation you heard just now, Dr. Reddy described various scenes of moving service and selfless love that he has personally witnessed in the last 2 years during his trips to various countries. In the next part, he goes on to share about how the International Sai Organization is preparing itself for the future and what are the 5 vital principles that every devotee should keep in mind. This conversation was recorded in the studios of Radio Sai on November 27th, 2012, and in conversation with Dr. Reddy was Radio Sai's Bishop Rushdie. Thank you very much, dear listeners, for listening. If you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to write to us by emailing to listener@radiosai.org. Sai Ram.